Hello, YouTube. It's been a while. Um, Today I would actually like to talk about something I'm a teeny tiny bit emotional about. Um, I would like to talk about City of Heroes, and I would like to talk about the concept of home, which is something that some people argue with me about. The reason why I want to do this is because originally I wanted to attempt at doing a machinima, but unfortunately, I have no computer skills at all whatsoever. I don't know how to demo mod or any of that jazz there. And the only thing that I have left of City of Heroes is the character creator. Um, let's talk about home. Okay. Um, Home for me has been many different places in my life. At first in my life, home was my grandmother's fried chicken. I know how that sounds, but let me get to my point. In high school, home for me was a stairwell in Mary Carroll High School. Um, Later on, uh, not long after I had gotten sick, home for me was a place called City of Heroes. Now, to my point, the statement, home is where the heart is perhaps the most accurate statement that we can make about home. Home is what we feel in our heart about a place or people. And more often than not, home is defined by the people for whom we surround ourselves by. Home was that fried chicken because of the sheer amount of love that my grandmother put into her cooking. Home was that stairwell because the people that I wanted to be surrounded by for the rest of my life were there. Eventually, high school comes to an end. And this is something certain people I know don't know how to get past. For many of the people that I've known over the course of my life, high school never ended. They're still there, and I don't know why, and I don't know how to help them or if I should, um, or if they'll get it on their own time. Um, Home was City of Heroes because of the people. I can remember things like I had I and a girlfriend had made the decision to break up and go our separate ways, and I was a little down in the mouth about that, and I logged into City of Heroes, and without mentioning it, without talking about it, without saying, "Hey, somebody help me here," or any of that, the people knew and they helped me. And that was a real long time ago whenever I first started playing City of Heroes. City of Heroes was not home because um, of the place. If it had been a single player game, it would be a very cool game and it would more than likely be in my collection. But that's not home, not the game. Home was the people for whom I hung out with. It's been so long since I played, I don't even remember all their names. I can remember people that I was acquaintances with, not people that I spent dedicated time around. I can remember playing the game and sometimes, new folks they struggle. It's a new game. you struggle sometimes, especially whenever it's different from what you're used to experiencing, especially whenever it's different from what you're accustomed to. We just help each other. That's all there was to it. It's hard for me to live without that game. And once again, not because of the people, but I mean, not because of the game, but because of the people. The game was gathering of pixels and programming and development and whatnot. And today, we live in a space and in a time where we don't get to have that. God, why do I always yawn whenever I'm doing YouTube video? We live in a space and a time where we don't have that. We don't have that place where we go. And you know, the only other superhero games that are out there are Champions Online, which is a very, very good example how not to run an MMORPG, and DC Universe Online, which is a very good example of the Japanese perspective of superheroes. Superman's core abilities are not Frost and Brawl. They are invincibility and super strength. Well, near invincibility. There's a weakness there. I think we all know what that is. I don't think I need to go into the explanation of kryptonite. You know, in DC Heroes, as open world as it is, DC UO as open world as it is, ain't very open world. You kind of get led around by your nose, you know, for a while there. You don't really get to be the hero you want to be. You have to live within the confines of these goofy abilities that don't really make a whole lot of sense. Um, and what could have been a natural successor to City of Heroes, Champions Online, kind of crumbled, kind of fell apart. That's what happens whenever you have developers who don't give a damn about their players. I miss City of Heroes more for the people than anything else, and I could say that 100 times, and I can't really explain it to you. Home today is my children and my wife. They are the people whom I am the most interested in, and it's kind of hard to explain otherwise. You know, love. This is a strange thing to try to explain to another human being, even though we all know what each other means by love. It's hard to understand one another, which is bizarre. I love my wife more than breath. I love my children more than I love myself. And for somebody who has not had children, how do I explain that to you? Since I've had kids, I've seen strange things. Some would call dangerous, some would call miraculous. And yet, with children, I feel more deeply. It is a strange, strange thing to miss a place and then to truly understand why you miss that place. I often used to say to myself, God, I would love to just fly one more time in City of Heroes. A flight wouldn't do it. I oftentimes think that the former players of City of Heroes and the people who appreciated it should have a convention where we could meet, hang out, talk about City of Heroes and the other things that interest us. But I don't think it will happen because, by comparison, we are a small number of people. If I were to have any piece of advice for any MMORPG out there, is to allow people to guide the venture of your game. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say about your game, positive or negative, and change it for the better. DC Universe Online is currently the only game that could potentially do it because they're starting to get it. You know, you have to be willing to open up, to express, to change, not just create storylines that lead people about by their nose, but to actually allow people to create the superhero of their dreams. You can't be afraid of superpowers and have a superpower game, okay? And that's the way ignoring Superman and Batman's abilities comes across, because Batman, by all technicality, is a ninja, and people, they hear that and they go, please, he's just Batman. It's gadgets and kung fu. It's more than that. I'm sure the conversation came up in the middle of the creation of the thing is, how are we supposed to compare? Most importantly, Green Lantern abilities general are not genetic. They're derived from a lantern ring. And without that ring, there is no power. You cannot be afraid to address the brokenness of your game. You can't be afraid to address the people. You can't be afraid of their opinions, positive or negative, and you have to follow your player base. It's just how it works. You have to set aside the thought of mechanics and how is that supposed to work. You just play it. You always make the assumption that Superman's experience and time on Earth would give him an advantage against any superhero or any supervillain. My greatest recommendation is stop treating the original Justice League as NPCs. You have to allow them to move. You have to allow them to breathe. You have to allow them to have real human conversations, or, in Martian Manhunter's, inhuman to human conversations on certain subject matters. If nothing else, if you just took the main three, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and allowed, on occasion, for real live human developers to play them and to portray them and to breathe life into them, trust me, it will make an impact. You will hear things from your player base you would never have expected to hear. They'll ask you advice. How do I do this? How do I be a superhero in a place where people fucking die? Where I can't save everyone? Give me some advice on that, huh, Clark? Because he does save everyone. That's what he does. He's Superman. That's the reason why I didn't like the Man of Steel movies, because Superman don't kill people. Other people kill people. Superman just beats them up and puts them in jail. I've always wondered, what would it be like to meet Superman on the day that he decides to break? That he can't take the deaths anymore. I'm sure there's a comic book out there somewhere on the subject. My favorite thing about City of Heroes was the comics. And if I can give you the address, there's a place where all those comics have been archived. They're really, really good. There's some bullshit on my computer and now on my phone. Listen to me. You game developers, you players. Don't be afraid to make your game the best that it can be. Don't be afraid to stop messing around and do real work. Don't be afraid to allow your game to be a home. One of the greatest things City of Heroes had was sometimes without even saying a word, you felt like a hero, like your own hero. That it wasn't about anybody else, that you could be your own guy. Yeah, sure, whenever you save an NPC, that NPC generalistically speaking returns and says, "Thank you for saving my life," and that goes a long way. Never be afraid to reach or surpass the bar that City of Heroes has laid. You know, it's a legacy for all superhero games that you should not be afraid of. NCSoft made the worst mistake they possibly made. We were on the brink of amazing things, of astounding things. Allow your game to live. Allow your game to breathe. Allow players to make that place a community more than just on the forums. And honestly, what do forums have that speaking through a microphone doesn't have? I know that many times it's kind of hard to convince the people above you that this is the faster and wisest path. Or yes, this is going to be a little rough and tumble. Yes, it could potentially break the game, but in the end, if we are successful, it will be better. You shouldn't be frightened of doing great and astounding things. Honestly, the whatever the hell they're calling them, the little mosquito-like bug genetic installer things in DC Universe Online, it's a trap. You'll be stuck permanently if you don't get rid of it ASAP. Okay? Because what it does not do is it does not allow the player to be the superhero that they want to be in DCUO. It doesn't, it's confusing, first of all. And second of all, I would never refer to Lantern abilities as a control ability. Yes, the potential for control is there, but it's a much higher ability. They're the cosmic tanks. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of real superpowers. Don't be afraid of reaching out beyond the borders of what you currently have. Give people options in character creation. Don't just limit them to those little bug things genetically altering them. Don't be afraid to make your game the best game that you can do. Don't be afraid to give your players creativity. I mean, look at City of Heroes. City of Heroes set a bar so high above what you're currently doing, either Champions or DCUO. It is astonishing that your guys are still functional and that NCSoft has not brought it back. Think on what I've said. The heart does not give one flying fuck what you think home is logically. The heart decides what home shall be. Be it a rectangular square of cement that you and your friends hang out on, or a stairwell, or food, or that moment when you and your wife have union, or that moment whenever you first log on. Don't be afraid to make a game more than a game. Bring the city to life. No matter what game we're talking about, bring the city to life. Let players really be someplace special. And don't be afraid of that. And don't worry about the mechanics. When you see the imbalance, you'll figure it out. God bless you all. Have a nice day. I'm out.